Hello there, Internet peeps. It's your good buddy Rue to sit here and do one of my top three favorite things to do with my mouth, and that's talk about comic books. So hooray, comic books! So let's get started off with something actually not that good. Amazing Spider-Man, back in Quack. When I first read about this book, I was totally stoked because I actually really love Howard the Duck comic books. I've read the Essential. I have the Max book from 2002, and I'd be willing to double dip and basically repeat most of what's in the Essentials for some in a couple more comics if the double dip ever got a second printing. That being said, this book right here, Back in Quack, was utter garbage. Rather than being a Spider-Man Howard the Duck story, this was a poorly written farce of a tribute to Steve Gerber. If you haven't yet, don't buy this. Nothing in here makes it worth whatever $3.99 or whatever your discount's going to be. It's going to make it worth it. Go pick up the Essentials, reread what you have if you have anything, but don't buy that one. It's just not worth it at all. Deadpool MAX, #1. I know that I'm biased, so I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I really enjoyed this book. This was a fun first issue. That is basically a standalone issue. Yes, there's probably going to be an overarching story, but there's no real to be continued. You didn't lose anything if you don't read the next issue and you just didn't like this one. It's a very good tryout issue because, again, I like standalones, especially in first issues. The art, Kyle Baker does. I like his new style. He does a phenomenal job. David Lapham almost makes up for his horrible contribution to Deadpool 1000. And overall tone, fun, absurdity, sex, violence, good fit for the Max line. Chaos War #1. There's another book that ever since it was announced, I've been really, really waiting for it. And this almost lived up to my expectations. I'm not really that big a fan of the art. I don't know, it didn't, there were times that it pulled me out of the story. Also, I really could have gone with more of a reminder about what happened in Secret Invasion with the God Squad. But all that being said, the story was excellent. The most touching part for me was when Hercules is either in the afterlife or part of it was kind of confusing, was hearing what all of his friends actually thought about him. And then knowing all that, he had to go and convince them that he's being serious this time and he really, really, really needs their help. And this is completely for real. It's not a drunken hallucination. I highly recommend this as a buy. CBLDF Liberty Comics Annual 2010. I've bought all three of these. 2009, 2008, 2009, 2010. And this one, along with the 2009 version, have just been horrible. The stories aren't funny. They're not clever. And for the most part, they're just stupid, vapid, violent, vulgar, 5 pages of stupidity just to prove this free speech point that the CBLDF stands for. I like free speech. I actually like what the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund does, and I'm willing with my finances to spend $5 a year on a comic book they put out that if it donates to the good cause. But could you please give me a comic book for that $5 that's worth even half that much? These creators just really seem to phone this in, and it's really actually insulting to ask me for just. I don't see why I have to respect if they don't. American Vampire #7. First of all, vampires in Vegas. That's totally cool. But second of all, more important, The Outhousers. That's www.theouthouses.com, the world's greatest comic book forum ever. We interviewed Scott Snyder on our podcast. That's Bloodcast Radio. For about 2 hours a couple weeks ago. He totally called in, and we had a great time. Any questions that were put forth when I announced this with YouTube and on the Outhousers were asked. And there's a link here if you're reading this at the Outhouses down in the text field, or if you're watching this on YouTube, go to my RUviews Facebook page, and there's a link there also where you can download the podcast. He came in, we'll call it part 2. If you want, you can just download that part. Again, spent 2 hours with us, talked about American Vampire, Stephen King. He's the new writer on Detective Comics. Or we also just talked about Whiskey, Grant Morrison, and Mark Millar. Had a great time. I highly recommend it. The Boys #47. This book was basically one big conversation. There's like 2 or 3 panels of action, but other than that, it was Hughie talking to his girl. And I really, really like the setup. And what says a lot about the writing of this book that I'm actually mad at a character. I'm mad at what Hughie did in this issue. I understand it, but I just really wish that he was as good as a guy as he wishes he was. I think at the end of this storyline is where Highland Hughie, Highland Laddie, whatever it's called, that limited series would actually time-wise begin. I hope at the end of all this, Hughie makes up for what happened. But I'm pissed off at him right now. And it's amazing to me that I can still, at my age, and as long as I'm reading comic books, get mad at a character. And I'm actually glad I still have that in me. Couple trades to go over. And I will be doing my my holiday trade special coming up here soon, so don't think this is it. But Hack/Omnibus Volume 1. When I do my trade special, what you should buy your comic book friends for the holidays, I will not be recommending this. As fun of an idea as a person who goes around killing slashers is, this book is way too boring and predictable. At no point do any of the two major characters, or even any of the minor ones that are reoccurring, as soon as you know they're a reoccurring character, you know they're safe. And there's no actual danger to anybody that the reader is supposed to care about. I know that in comics on a regular basis, X-Men, X-Force, Deadpool, we all know there's no danger to the main character for the most part. But in a horror book, you need to feel that maybe the hero could die. And that isn't here. But again, this is the first omnibus. Maybe in the second it gets better, but I'm not going to buy it. I like horror anthologies for the most part, and I think I realized the reason I like them is because there's always the chance that the protagonist might get hurt, might die. With Hack Slash as an ongoing or collection of miniseries, no, it just never felt horror. It just felt like bleh, where the humor is, even when it is funny, it's kind of forced. And finally, Essential Werewolf by Night, Volume 1. I have a kind of embarrassing confession to make here. It took me 5 years to read this. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not kidding. 5 years. I bought this the week it came out, I think. It's not because it's a bad book. It's not because it's a slow read, or anything like that. It's basic. Not even because it's dated. Like this was written in the 70s. It's not even because of any of that. Well, the data part maybe, but honestly, it just became my bedroom book. And if I didn't have a novel on top of it, I just reached for this. It just took 5 years for me to get through it. All that being said, I actually really did grow. Maybe it's just because it took me so long to read it. Really did grow to appreciate what Werewolf by Night was in the 70s. If it wasn't edgy, if this wasn't, I don't want to say controversial, but if I don't know the word I'm looking for. But if this wasn't something that was barely allowed, I'd be very surprised. The risks that this took, the innuendos, the violence, the art, just the things that your brain filled in because they actually couldn't put it into a comic book was just very impressive. And it makes me wish that mainstream Marvel, mainstream DC, or even some of the other mainstream books, not Vertigo, not Max, not IDW, but some mainstream books actually went and took these risks again. And I don't mean vulgar, violent, grotesque like they did with Nemesis, or just some of the stupid stuff that's put out there as risque now. But something that actually is a good quality book that makes you go, just is, I don't even know the words what I'm looking for. I just know that it's not there right now, in my opinion, in the mainstream comic book community. My only major complaint about Werewolf by Night is that it only takes place when he can be a werewolf. Those 3 days a month when he can be a werewolf. And it's like, and then you miss about like 20 plus days worth of story, and they refer to things that happened last month as the other day. So like you just miss basically 90% of the main character's life because they only focus on when he's a werewolf. Again, I think there's a volume 2. I'm going to pick it up eventually. Right now, I have a moratorium on buying any new collections until my unread trade pile diminishes by at least half. So that's me, because I just have lots of unread comics right now, and I need to read them. That's it for this week. I hope everybody had a good day. It is we got hockey, baseball, and football going on right now. So I'm sure that there's something on TV downstairs that I got to go take care of. So everybody have a good one, and well, here we go. Later, peeps.